How's the grandbaby doing? You guys FaceTime a lot?
She got put it in the mouth. Whatever.
I know what you
Ready?
She's getting better.
When you're ready, I'm gonna call to
We're
order.
moving to California.
From where?
Streaming.
How do you feel about it?
I'm pretty excited for it.
I think it would be like a time.
He plays same life.
I was gonna say, you've been your problem. Come on.
What part of California?
You tell me thumbs up, I roll.
I've never been. That's supposed to be like really. That'd be a fun one.
Weather will
Ready?
be better when we visit in the liquor.
Good evening. Call to order a special common council meeting of Tuesday, June 27th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Alderman Hopfer.
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman. Here. Alderwoman Day. Here. Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Present.
And Alderman Hassan is not present.
Okay. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It'll be citizen comment period. Any citizen wishing to approach the podium and speak on behalf of the city, please state your name and address clearly. Try to keep it to 3 minutes as best you can.
Hi, my name is Tom Taylor. I live at 7014 Ellerway Court. I'm here on two items. First is, I want to thank Mayor Olson for all the time that he has put in over the many, many years that he was alderman, he was chairman of the Economic Development Commission, and as the mayor, and to thank his family for devoting all the time that when they could,
As you know, Mr. Mayor, once you become the mayor, you're pretty much it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week job, and you never leave it. And for family members, they have to put up with mayors that are talking about all the stuff that's going on constantly. So Steve has put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours on behalf of the citizens of this community, and he definitely is entitled to recognition for all the work that he has done. So with that, unfortunately, I have the former mayor over here who can speak better than any human being that's ever existed. So with that, I'll leave it to Fred.
Are only former mayors allowed to? Hi, Fred Clements, 9399 South Cobblestone. You may have to gavel me, Mr. Mayor. I hope you don't, because I've thought about what I want to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, I do have quite a bit to say, and that is that I hope people, when they look at Steve or anybody else, including Tom as mayor, will realize that sometimes you need to take a step back and don't focus on just recent things that have happened, but look at the whole panoply of things that have happened during their career. And what started making me think about that is that I was a history major in school, and I'm proud of it, but I just happened to be Googling this afternoon the 9 most useless majors in the United States. And number one, by the way, for those of you who might be interested, the least valuable a major was supposed to be theater, because supposedly you can learn everything outside of the theater that you need to have in the theater. Second worst was philosophy, and I'm sorry to say that history was in the top 9 as far as being useless. But I don't think that's true. History has taught me a lot, and I think history can teach everybody a lot, and let me just give you a couple examples of what I mean by that. We all know that Mitchell Field, our airport, is named after General Billy Mitchell. Mitchell Street, of course, named after him. But Billy Mitchell, during his life, was not always looked on as a person that had done a lot or accomplished a lot. He ended up being court-martialed from the U.S. Air Force, court-martialed because he kept pushing the idea that planes were the wave of the future, that we needed to learn more about air power and doing things through the air. And other generals, other military people didn't like that. And as they say, he ended up getting court-martialed. So we look at him now as a hero with an airport and a street named after him, but it wasn't always that way. I also wanted to talk about one of my favorite heroes in my study of history, Harry Truman. Harry Truman became president after Franklin Roosevelt, who was this kind of larger than life, imperious. He'd been elected president 4 times, and now here was Harry Truman, just kind of a man off the street, an average guy. And yet Harry Truman is the one who integrated the military, black and white. He's the one that made the decision, the very difficult decision about dropping the atomic bomb. He's the one that saw to it that the United Nations actually went into effect. And I think history later decided that Harry Truman was an awfully good president, even though while he was alive, one of the standard jokes was to err as Truman. That was what people said, to err as Truman. But years went by and people saw him, I think, in a different light. And most of you, of course, have had contact with Steve over the recent years. And as Tom said better than I, when you look at all the time that Steve put in and the efforts and the different committees and the different groups, it really is a tremendous thing, more than 30 years of public service. But let me tell you a couple things that I don't think some of you would realize because you weren't around at the time. But right down the street from us is that big, beautiful library, which I think has become one of the real landmarks of Franklin, one of the real beautiful things in Franklin. It's kind of a focal point for the community. People go there, people get books, they meet with each other, there's reading rooms, all that kind of things. Well, believe it or not, the library was not unanimously supported when that idea was first proposed. A lot of people said, oh, people aren't going to go to the library, it's going to be a waste of money, it's going to be a waste of space, people aren't going to go to it. I will tell you that Steve Olson fought very hard to make sure that that library went into place, as did Tom. But it wasn't unanimous. Not all the aldermen agreed with that. Steve stuck by his guns and was very instrumental in making sure we have that big, beautiful building that's down the road here. The Franklin Business Park was not always looked at as a really good idea. There were those who said, well, that's not going to succeed. You're going to have wasted a lot of money. That's not a good project. No businesses are going to want to come to Franklin. That's going to be a failure. Well, now I saw where the Franklin Business Park was rated as in the top 10 of all TIF projects in the whole state of Wisconsin. In the top 10 as one of the best. I will tell you that Steve and Tom fought for that and tried to make sure that it happened too. So the whole point I'm trying to make here is that history will judge each of us. History will make a decision, but don't make that decision too quickly. Wait for some time to set in. Wait for you to be sitting in the chairs that you're in and realize how difficult this job is. If everybody's happy with you, if everybody thinks that everything's wonderful, it means that you're probably not doing anything. Because to be an elected official, Mayor Nelson, you certainly will run into this too. To be an elected official means you sometimes have to make tough decisions. And those tough decisions sometimes are ones that not everybody agrees with. You're going to have to sometimes make decisions that some people won't like, but that comes with the territory. I'm proud of all of you who are on the council. I'm proud that you're willing to do this and put the time in. Some of you are new, some of you aren't. But I also think we need to recognize somebody who put in tons and tons of time, put his heart and soul into it, and that is how proud I am of Mayor Olson. Thank you.
Doug Milinovich, 7777 West Faith Drive, Franklin. I want to echo what the two gentlemen before me, but I'm going to point out some different things. Steve, I admire you for what you did for Franklin, and you had your naysayers, and you always dealt with it professionally and above board. You didn't get into shouting matches with people and challenge anybody or anything like that. So I want to thank you. As a father to a 5-year-old, I'm sorry, Ms. Rante, who's in the audience here, but it's a daily basis that I hear 6, 8, 10 times a day, Daddy, I want to go to Kayla's. And I believe a big part of why we have Kayla's is Steve Olson. You know, Steve, is your lovely bride with us today or no? She's at the park, yeah. Well, I was going to let her know. I was going to let her know that I was going to thank her also because as one of you two fine gentlemen brought up, that when you do something like this, no matter to whether you're a common council member, a mayor, or whatever, you are donating a lot of time to your city. Mr. Clements, I couldn't agree with you more. If naysayers are a problem for you, you don't belong being a mayor. So, Steve, thank you for everything you did for this community. I personally, I'm in real estate. I can move anytime I want. I just recently moved 2 years ago from Franklin to Franklin, and there was a reason for that. So, Steve, genuinely, I know we have become friends and everything, but just as a constituent, you're a hell of a man, and you did a lot for our city. Thank you. To the entire Common Council, thank you for the time that you spend away from your families, and thank you for being a servant to your city. I do appreciate all of you.
Pat Murray, 8162 South Legend Drive. I'd like to join my fellow former mayors. No one understands how tough it is to be mayor unless you've sat in that center chair. And they're absolutely right. You spend a lot of time ducking bricks coming at you because everyone has an opinion. Sometimes it's very parochial, but when Steve gives you his opinion, it's for the best interest of Franklin. Having served with with Steve, yeah, I'm proud to call him a friend and a fellow colleague. Steve always had one guiding principle, and that's what's in the best interest of Franklin. Having grown up in Franklin, attended the Franklin schools, I've watched this community grow firsthand. Graduating from Franklin High School, where we used to be called, oh, that's nothing but the Franklin farmers. Well, we don't have too many farmers left, but we sure have grown. And we've brought some quality people here. We have a livable community, still have a very fine school system. We've been able to do a lot for this city without going into a lot of debt. Because we're from the South Side. We pay as we go. And Steve always had that as a guiding principle. What can we afford and what can we plan for in the future? The business park was a great plan. And Mayor Clements, you're absolutely right. We have to fight tooth and nail sometimes to get people on board. Oh, you're spending too much money, it'll never work. Well, take a drive through there now. And you're right, it's one of the finest business parks around. And we continue to grow. And under Steve's leadership, we continue on that same path. And I'm proud to say that Steve is not only a great mayor, but he is a good friend. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Runty, 8235 West Coventry Drive. First, I would like to recognize the mayor and the council members for their continued commitment to the city of Franklin as servant leaders. A servant leader is a person of character, putting people first, a skilled communicator, has foresight, a compassionate collaborator, and a systems thinker. May your position and power never be greater than your commitment to serve the people of Franklin, and may you all work collaboratively for the overall common good of our city. Thank you in advance for your service. Secondly, I would like to thank a servant leader who is being recognized tonight for his commitment to the city of Franklin. He has supported Kayla's Playground's mission and vision since 2013, even when it was not a unanimous vote. It wasn't supported, very similar to some of the other fine things that Franklin has to offer. As most of you know, the playground was built in 2015, and since then has been awarded and recognized as follows. In 2016, the Wisconsin Policy Forum, in their annual salute to local government, the playground was the Public Policy Award winner. In that same year, the Franklin Public School District gave award recognition. The Milwaukee A-List listed Kayla's Playground as the best playground. In 2017, Milwaukee Magazine and Milwaukee A-List both awarded Kayla's Playground as best playground. In 2019 and 2022, Kayla's Playground was included in our favorite Milwaukee area parks to enjoy with kids, written by Milwaukee Moms blog. Consecutively in 2022 and 2023, Milwaukee with Kids listed Kayla's as the #2 recommended playground. Several websites, including Only in Your State and Wheelchair Travel, both mention Kayla's Playground as a place to visit. Only in Your State goes so far as to say that the suburb of Franklin holds this little gem. TripAdvisor rates Kayla's Playground as a 5-star playground. The park next door suggests to take the time to read the signs at Kayla's Playground. It will do your heart so good. Kayla's Playground has a 4.8 out of a 5-point Google rating with close to 950 Google reviews. We have 3,043 followers on Facebook and 3,112 likes on Facebook. I think all of that states that Kayla's Playground is well liked. And we offer it at the City of Franklin. This hidden gem is amongst the rest of the finest offerings in Franklin, like the Conservancy for Healing and Heritage, the Rock Sports Complex, the Franklin Business Park, Franklin Public School System, the Franklin Public Library, the Franklin Historical Society, just to name a few. Steve, myself, and the rest of Kayla's crew would like to personally thank you for your support and most of all, your servant leadership. More importantly, Kayla thanks you for having the foresight to support our mission and vision to build a truly all-accessible and all-inclusive playground for all abilities and all ages. And I thank you. On behalf of Lori Becker, if I may read, okay. On behalf of Lori Becker Jankowski, who resides at 8160 South 77th Street, who could not be here tonight, I share her following sentiments. Steve Olson, thank you for being a shining star for the City of Franklin. As a resident and former member of Kayla's crew, I witnessed firsthand how caring and compassion can be part of politics through your leadership. You went above and beyond to help Kayla's crew make the playground come to life. I hope you are able to smile each time you visit the playground and see all the happiness it has created in our community and beyond. Again, thank you for supporting our project. Lori Becker Jankowski. Thank you.
John Beganski, B as in boy, I-E, Ganski. I was asked to run for the president of the Seniors Association here in the city of Franklin, and without Steve's guidance, I would have never been able to make it through on what we did. We went from under 100 people up to 156. Excuse me. I appreciated all the extra help he gave me because I'm not a politician. I was out here just, I got voted in and I go, what should I do next? And he gave me the guidance that I needed, along with and he told me what people to talk to and everything else, which was really appreciated. So Steve, good luck in your retirement. John, good luck in your future. And thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
Thank you. It's Tom Taylor, 7014 Elroy Court. I already spoke a little bit. I want to reduce the comments, although I think Steve totally deserves all of the compliments. But I'm raising tonight the issue of the police contract, the collective bargaining agreement. I had the opportunity of speaking to Kelly Hirsch earlier today. I talked to the mayor regarding this issue. Some of you know that I created the Personnel Committee when I was the chairman of the Finance Committee for the city. The rationale for that was so that the citizens of this community would have ample time to review those contracts, to look at comparables, to look at what is the retention and recruitment issues for the city, and to try and recruit the best people possible. Dale Weichel, I understand, still leads the Civil Service Commission for the city, and that the ordinance of the city talks about the Personnel Committee being in charge. Now, having said all of that, it's also come to light today that the Personnel Committee did not meet until July of this year. We have a brand new Common Council, and they are trying to, from what I understand, I've been talking to Kelly, is that the, yeah.
Fire was in July 2008.
2008. Okay. Anyhow, thank you. That came as a little bit of a shock to me, given that the Personnel Committee had for many, many years since it was created been the basically the organization that looked at what was right for collective bargaining in this city. What I'm asking the mayor today, or Kelly, is okay, you've gone into closed session. The police union for the city has ratified the contract. They are ready for this council in open session to vote with a majority vote to approve it. And that will be the contract for the next up until 2024, if I have that correct. What I am looking for, and it's, you know, when I negotiated the collective bargaining agreements for Milwaukee County, when the closed session was taking place, okay, after that, so that the people of Franklin can look at what went down, I'm looking for the fiscal note that is assigned for what is the contract going to cost the people of Franklin, given it's your largest organization personnel costs. And two, and more importantly, is the demands that were made from the union, and then what was the settlement agreement. I looked at the document that's in today's agenda, and it comes through, but I have to say that much of the document as written is not real clear to the average public as to what it really means. In other words, how much is the healthcare proposal? Has there been a change in the retirement language? What is the cost from 2022 to 2024? How will that impact upon the other bargaining groups, the fire, your non-reps, et cetera, and how does it fall in place with comparable communities? So that's what I'm asking for. I really do want to thank both Kelly and John for getting back to me and explaining in a very detailed manner what they've gone through and why it's essential that this council vote for it tonight. One last thing, and that's that I looked at the recommendations and I see that the police chief, Chief Oliva, is recommending approval. I had the pleasure of hiring this guy, and after I did that, I would meet with the other mayors and village presidents of Milwaukee County, and they would go, how in the hell did you get Oliva to be your police chief for the city of Franklin? This guy is the best of the best of the best of the best. And if the chief says this is what he recommends, that's good enough for me. So thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come forward at this time and speak? You can use the PD address if you wish. Seriously.
PD entrance?
So,
Oh,
you have to state your name and address.
Yeah, of course. I'll use the PD address. I am a resident of the city. My name's Tom Friedbacher. I just want to say that I'm also a police officer with our city, and what we have is a great department here. We've been out of a contract. We've been out of a contract now for about a year and a half, and that's why we feel it's important to vote on tonight. The city has excellent citizens. It's an honor to work for this department. It's an honor to be on the board for our department, our union. Gary, our union president, is one of the greatest guys that I could ask to run it. Dave, same with him. I think it's important to vote on tonight. Our guys deserve it. It's hard to be a police officer nowadays. It's especially hard to hire them. You can talk to anybody at our department, especially the guys who pick up a lot of the overtime. There's a lot of overtime right now, and I'm more than happy to work it for our citizens. So just a few short words, but it's an honor to work for our chief. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Spoke earlier, Doug Milinovich, 7777 West Faith Drive, Franklin. I too want to commend our police department without getting into details. I do have major health problems, and many times they're on the scene before the fire department. Fire department follows right thereafter. And I'm going to try and keep it together here, but I will turn around and I will tell you that Chief Oliva, my disease caused me to get in some trouble. And you made phone calls after your shift was over. You made sure officers were talking to my wife, letting her know whether I was safe or not. And I just want to commend you guys. Gary, I've gotten to know you through different groups. And, in a world where employees in general are hard to find, police officers are even tougher to find. And I do, without a doubt, fly the Blue Line flag on the back of my truck. I have respect for every officer, whether I always agree with them or not. And I would just urge this Common Council tonight to let's put this behind us and let the men and women who serve Franklin know they are appreciated by your vote. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to come up and speak? Even a round two if you wish. If not, we've got something from Madam Clerk. If you would please.
Certainly. This is a comment.
It's an email from a citizen that we're wishing to read on the record. Counselor.
I received an email from David Bartels.
Or Bartles.
David Bartles of 8489 Golden Lake Court, Franklin. He asked that this be read in during the comments tonight. To the Franklin Common Council and Mr. Steve Olson, I regret not being able to attend tonight's meeting to say this in person, but I'd like to convey my most sincere thank you and gratitude for Steve's dedication and service to the city of Franklin for over 30 years. Steve's commitment to bettering our city is quite evident by his service as an alderman, a 3-term mayor, and his work on numerous committees, especially on the Economic Development Commission, and his work with several councils and committees within Milwaukee County. Not to mention volunteering more of his time by his involvement with the Franklin Noon Lions, our local Chamber of Commerce, and other volunteer organizations in our city. There's a saying that goes, try and leave the world in a better place than you found it. And Steve has certainly done that for our community via his accomplishments during his time in office. Like him or not, and politics aside, a lot got done in Franklin during his tenure. Our business parks, Kayla's Playground, the Rock Ballpark Commons, and more. Steve, I know you're proud of your record and accomplishments, and if I listed them all, I know I'd go way past my allotted 3 minutes during the citizen comment period. Also, it was an honor to serve on the Fire and Police Commission and Parks Commission during your time as mayor. Side note, I strongly encourage the citizens of Franklin to get involved, volunteer for a commission or for an event, and help support our new Mayor Nelson and our Common Council. Thank you once again, Steve, and I wish you and Bev nothing but good health, a happy retirement, safe travels, and nothing but blue skies ahead of you. Dave Bartles.
Very nice, Mr. Bartles. Okay, seeing no one further, we're close citizen comment period. Moving forward now, it'll be proclamation here for Steve Olson. I'm going to step on over here and present it.
All mics off.
Always switch.
I'll do that. I'll sit down. There we go. So,
This proclamation was drafted by the city attorney. Worked with former Mayor Steve Olson, 21 years, and a lot of history there.
Oh, it's about.
Oh, 30, good. So I'll start off. A proclamation in recognition of and in gratitude to public service Stephen R. Olson. Whereas Stephen R. Olson was elected mayor of the city of Franklin, Wisconsin, in 2014, and served the city as mayor through April 17, 2020. And whereas Stephen R. Olson's team was elected and served as alderman for the Franklin Alderman 2, 2001, alderman for District 1, 2004 to 2013, while serving as alderman and prior thereto served on the Economic Development Commission for some 8 years, serving as chairman thereof for some 9 years, and while serving as alderman, also served on the 27th Steering Committee, and as chairman thereof, the Finance Committee, Board of Health, Personnel Committee, Cable Television, and Technology Committee. And whereas, while serving as mayor, Steve served on the Milwaukee County Intergovernmental Cooperation Council, Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District Executive, the County Emergency Medical Services Council, Milwaukee Area Domestic Control Commission, Board of Directors, as chairman of the City of Franklin Plan Committee, and as chairman of the Franklin Development Authority. And whereas, he has also previously served as the president and chairman of the Franklin Chamber of Commerce, and as a member of the Franklin Lions. And whereas, with his initial membership on the Franklin Economic Development Commission, having started in 1991, he has now provided his time and efforts to and has served the community for over 3 decades. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, John R. Nelson, Mayor of the City of Franklin, Wisconsin, on behalf of all the citizens of Franklin, staff of the city government, all of those public officials and staff know you and work with you, and all the people that you have served. Good luck and Godspeed. Presented to the City of Franklin Common Council this 27th day of June, 2020.
those of you who know me know enough. First of all, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Common Council. Thank you, Jesse. Seems like just yesterday. First of all, I'm humbled by the comments spoke tonight, especially my predecessor. Much. It means a lot. I want to do a little bit of a story, and bear with me. It's going to take a minute. But I want to illustrate how this all works. Fred and Tom and Pat will all experience this. But Fred appointed me in 1991 to economic development. I had a goal. I got to work with Dave Bartles' dad and Brad Bauman, Spitzer, Sally Smith, a bunch of very intelligent business people. They kept telling me, Steve, about assessed value, about returning money to the taxpayer and making the tax balance. And that stuck with me all those years. And then in the late 90s, the Economic Development Commission was running out of things to do because we did our job. We sold the industrial, sold it out. Meantime, Fred had got the business park up and running, so he needed something else to do. So we had a forward-thinking planner, Bruce Kiniewski. Bruce and I had a bunch of lunches together, came to Fred and said, Fred, I think we need a strategic plan for economic development throughout the entire city, not just business. Because we have comprehensive plans with areas, but we don't know what's going to go in those. Fred said, yeah, let's do that. So there's a committee that didn't get on there. It's the Franklin Common Council Economic Development Strategic Plan Oversight. Remember that, Tom? Because you were on it. So that went on and developed a plan, first in the nation, for 11 different areas in the city that were previously planned for commercial, non-residential. And it was detailed plan. But then Fred had left office, Pat was in office, Pat moved along too, and the decision was made that this is detailed, but not detailed enough. Because in order to develop these parcels, we need to have engineering studies. So the Common Council narrowed it to 5 different areas. Those areas, Loomis and Ryan. I'm sorry, yes, Loomis and Ryan was area F. Area G, where Strauss, now cable, Comcast, cable company. Yep, Verizon. Area A, where Ballpark Commons is. Area C, where Northwestern Mutual is. And Area D was supposed to be the best business park property in the state, where a new corporate. So those areas are all studied, and the Common Council adopted your COM, and we move forward with it. What does all that mean? It means today that there's $62 million in Area A developed, more coming. Northwestern Mutual Life, $90 million. New corporate park, $110 million. And yet to be seen is what Verizon. But long-term planning, forethought, big picture thinking, let's work together and get it done. That's how you do it. So I wish you all luck. Congratulations for those new people here. And thank you for Black. Have a great night. You guys just hold on, right? I got to get some hugs. Just a few more. That's right.
Okay, moving forward, item C, approval of minutes, regular common council meeting of June 6th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item D, hearings, we have none. Going on to item E, organizational business, mayoral appointees. Any call for separate action on this? And I'll read this. Mayor appointments has made, the mayor has made the following appointments for council confirmation. Andy Pelkey, address 9320 West Grandview Court, Alderman District 2, Technology Commission for a 3-year unexpired term expiring 4/30/2024. Barbara Wiesner, 7479 Carter Circle South, Alderman District 5, Tourism Commission for a 1-year unexpired term expiring 12/31/23.
Motion to move.
Maybe first
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Letters and petitions, seeing none. Okay, item G1. Chief, if you want to, I'll read this if you want to step up, please. Request for the police department to add 1 police officer position over authorized strength from 8/1/2023 through 12/31/2023. And then I have a couple comments on this as well.
Yes, thank you. As you heard before, and I've told you, I think more than once, the difficulties of hiring good police officers these days. It's been a real challenge, especially this past year. We've had to fill 15 vacancies since last September. And it's been a challenge. Every time we hire a few, we lose a few. So it's hard to catch up. And my thought was, since we have some good candidates right now that I'd like to put through the academy and hire, including one over our assigned strength, to take advantage of hiring that last person and hopefully maintain full staffing, as I anticipate at least 1, if not 2 vacancies to occur again to the end of the year. So the goal is maybe by January 1st of '24 to hopefully be at full staffing. So that's my goal, and we could do that. We could try to do that by having that 1 extra position, which would be an officer I'd put through the academy starting in August 9th, and they would graduate in mid-December. And I anticipate, again, that vacancy to get us back down to assigned strength by that time. And I'll add that I do have the money in my existing personnel budget because of the vacancies. We are under budget for personnel costs, and I can absorb that extra position.
Alderman Bartlett.
This was brought before the Personnel Committee, and it was discussed to some length, and it was approved by the Personnel Committee to move forward for us to vote on. So Personnel Committee supports this.
Thank you.
I would move to approve.
A second.
Yeah, I've got a couple points that I want us to make. We have a first and a second and a little feedback. So one of the things was speaking with the chief and being in law enforcement 29 years myself and experiencing the Fire and Police Commission member for 8.5 years here for the city. This is unprecedented times. This wave, which was thought to be only kind of a temporary challenge, a temporary issue, is not going away. It's getting worse. And when we're having these struggles and these challenges that didn't exist 20 years ago, 25 years ago, even 15 years ago to the level anywhere near we are now, we have to think, and I hate the term outside the box, we have to think of different avenues, different ways. And this way that the chief has come about with this is exactly the type of thinking we've got to do, because we've got to look to plan for that future. And locking down these employees right now, I believe last week, WileyNet, for those that don't know, is the state site that you go on when you wish to hire a police officer or apply for a police officer position. You go on WileyNet, and it's got everything listed from chief down to part-time, down to boat patrol, whatever you wish to do. And it was about 115 last week. 115 places. 5 years ago, there was about 25. So this is a epic concern. And I said this when I spoke to the roll call. The National Realtors Association came out with the top 5 reasons every year why somebody moves to a community. And the number 1 reason is every year because it's safe. And if it's not safe, they're not moving there, or they're not going to be living there long term. So I absolutely 100% think this is the best way to do it. I'm glad the council appears to be anxious to approve this. And I thank the chief again, and if you would mind standing through number 4. So we got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Item G2, an ordinance to amend ordinance 22-2521, an ordinance adopting the 2023 annual budget for the capital outlay fund to provide for the purchase of wireless microphones and related equipment for the common council chambers in the amount of $15,000. Jim, welcome.
I'll give a little background. Some people may not know the history of the audio system and the video system that we put in. We used to have an old analog system with 2 PV mixing boards, right where Karen's feet used to be. And that system lasted for over 20 years. Back in 2018, it was the microphone system alone was then just installed in here to get rid of the old analog system that was failing. Unfortunately, the wireless mics were not replaced at that time. These talk to a receiver that's in that gray box over there. There's 3 of them right now. They're so old, the FCC no longer supports the bands, the frequency channels on there, and we're getting a lot of interference off of those receivers. It is the recommendation on Heartland Business Systems, who built out the system and also the video conferencing system. I'd like to again thank Steve Olson. His insights and knowledge on audio video was essential for building the system. We are using it a little bit differently than what it was originally scoped out to be, where we would have the individual microphones tied to a camera. Now we have them all on. So not only are we going to be changing as part of this project, installing some new gooseneck microphones to replace these and the receivers, but we're also going to do a little bit of reprogramming of the system. So hopefully we're not going to get as much feedback as we're currently getting when we have all the microphones on. So this project is basically going to be not only replacing the wireless microphones, but also doing a little bit of reprogramming on just the mic systems as well.
Well, I'll speak last. Anyone else? Anything to say on that? Alderman Hofer?
I understand that it's not a huge dollar amount and that we're staying with the company that put the original system in. I feel personally more comfortable having an extra number to compare it to, just to make sure that we're still getting the best value. Most departments will do that and come back and say, here's a couple of options. They said it's not a huge number, but if we don't watch the little numbers too, that's all important. So that's all I have to say.
Please address on this.
Again, it's partially product and service that is part of this contract. So it was given to Heartland because they know the system right now, both the tying of the audio and the visual systems to it. So it is part product and part service. So if we did bid it out, it would only be product number that would probably be comparable.
And the rest of the system we're projecting will last well into the future, or we don't know?
The technology, we have to turn around and do it because the old system that we have right now, the old wireless microphones, some of them are literally stopped working, period. And second is we do have to turn around and fix the interference system because the channels are no longer supported. Those frequencies that are now being used by that system are now being used by other electronic equipment that is actually out there.
But if something were to happen in the next year, 2 to 3 years, the new equipment will be hopefully compatible with.
Yes, it will be compatible and it is under warranty.
Thank you.
Alderman Craig?
Is there any sort of software that will also be part of this as far as being able to manage the new equipment with transmission and all the management that is done as far as the audio video and the controlling of the microphones as well?
The system that itself is going to be integrated with the existing software that we actually have. So additional software is not needed in order to get the microphones to actually function.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's very similar to what we currently have right now. It just runs on different frequency channels.
Okay, just a couple quick things. So this new system will then, so these will be replaced, so the counselor will have his
The mics up, the dais microphones aren't being replaced. It's just the large microphones like this.
Okay.
The old-fashioned singer microphones that you have to hold your political set. They'll be replaced with the green gooseneck microphones.
Okay. And what's the time frame on this?
As soon as we can turn around and get product. that as soon as we can get the product, which they estimate 3 to 4 weeks for it. Again, supply chain problems that we're running in with everything again.
Okay, I entertain a motion on this.
So move.
Second.
So we've got Barber and Eichmann. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. G3, authorization to purchase wireless microphone transceivers and recharge stations for the Common Council chamber. Roll call. Okay, let's go back to item 2. We'll go ask Madam Clerk for a roll call. We already had the first and the second. So have a roll call vote on this, please.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. And Alderman Craig.
Aye. 5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion passes. Going to G, authorization to purchase wireless microphones, transceivers, and recharge stations for the Common Council chamber as specified under account 41-0181-5819.
So move.
Second.
So we've got Barber and Day. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 4, tentative agreement between the City of Franklin and Franklin Professional Police Officers Association for the 2022 to 2024 collective bargaining agreement. We could start with Madam Director of Administration, if you want to start with this. If not, I will.
So what we ended up doing is we took a look at opening up negotiations again to go from what the previous administration wanted to stick to, which was the 2%, and open up negotiations again to bring it to the 3%. And the reason why we did this, beyond trying to support our police department, was also to avoid arbitration. We feel that our police are obviously a very important part of our city and our community, and they should be treated as such. And the 3% that they were asking for over last year and this year, we've found the money in the budget to make that happen. So for 2022, there was a variance, a positive variance, and that money will cover the 2022 increase by the 1%. And then because of that additional money that is in 2022, we're asking for a carryover from 2022 to 2023 to support the 2023 budget, which is not, the difference is about $32,500, I think. And that is tentative. It could be less than that. So we're going to ask for the carryover from 2022 to support 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First of all, let me say I have the utmost respect and admiration for our police force. I'm very proud of our force and the job that they do. But I want to go on record and express my concern over some of how we got to where we got to. I think some of the things that were listed, such as not having the time to go before the Personnel Committee. We weren't scheduled for arbitration for some time yet. I think we could have done that.
Can I just say? Oh, sorry.
I just figured.
Okay, sorry.
I'm already jumping at the bit too to go at it, so go ahead, sir.
It seemed like from the council standpoint, we found out about everything short notice, and I would have appreciated the opportunity to have more notification and more involvement. I stand by the agreement. I'm not thrilled with the process of how we got there.
Well, to address that process, so you had this was all put out for review as of Friday. There was, when we all met at the council level, we saw the comparables, we saw a whole myriad of information that was out there. And that information has only gotten worse on our end. Now, if we need to go back and regurgitate that things got worse, we could do that. But I think we've gotten to a point in time where we need to look at it, settle it, move on. There's a question about going back to the personnel committee. That hasn't been done since July of '08. So I guess at what point are we're the leaders, we've gone and discussed this in closed session, we've seen comparables, we know where we're at, we know that we're in trouble, like all other agencies are, and it's time to act and put this moving forward. So we have a first and a second. Do you need to add anything, Ms.?
I just wanted to say I had a rookie oversight. I was using an old council action sheet, and that is one of the items that was in there that I had not, I had inadvertently left in there, was the personnel committee, going to the personnel committee.
Thank you. Seeing any other further discussion on this? Mr. Barber? Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Director.
I was doing a little bit of my back of the paper math, and I know that Kelly discussed transferring or accommodating the 3% increase by moving some of the 2022 money to 2023. And because of the vacancies, it looks like I would have to say we're probably going to be a little under $1 million left over in '23, even with that transfer over. So I would definitely say we have more than enough money to cover the 3% increase for '22, '23, and '24.
Thank you. Mr. Barber?
That's one of the issues that I raised in our session, of coverage and dollars that were to do that. And the way it was explained, that and feasible. I've also served on the personnel committee, thanks to Taylor, since 2006, and very rarely do I remember ever having discussed this kind of fire ambulance. Well, these are things that for the patient as well as possibly the fire commission that they find well. It's an administrative function and
If I could ask again, who made the first and who made the second? Because I'd like to read this motion in its entirety and then do a roll call vote. So,
I made the second, Mayor.
okay, excellent. I will read the motion. A motion to approve the Franklin Police Officers Association tentative agreement with the City of Franklin for a 2022 to 2024 successor labor agreement between the City of Franklin and the Franklin Professional Police Officers Association, and to authorize the mayor, director of clerk services, and director of administration to execute a labor agreement incorporating the provisions of the attached tentative agreement, and to authorize the director of administration to incorporate any such language into the employee handbook as she determines necessary. So we have a first and a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderwoman Day. Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion carries. Excellent. And where's the clap? Some good news finally. We got some good news tonight. Lots of good news going on. Item G5, resolution approving the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources NR-208 compliance maintenance report for 2022.
so moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item G6, an ordinance to amend ordinance 2022 to 2521. Ordinance adopting a 2023 annual budget for the general fund to transfer $11,000 of unrestricted contingency to the fire department building maintenance fund.
Motion to move.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Oh. So seeing it as a budget amendment, we are going to a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day. Alderman Barber. Alderman Craig.
Aye.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion carries. Okay, an ordinance to defer special assessment for water lines constructed for a water tower to serve the city of Franklin. Mr. Morrow. Is that on?
Thank you. This is actually related to the next item, G7, G8, or if you will, sister council actions. I put on your place just kind of a sketch I made up today. I fielded a phone call requesting about the number of parcels, and after looking at it, I realized that since we wrote the ordinance, we decided to extend the water main to the end of the city properties. So that would include another property on the other side of the street, 8171. And then if you consider all 4 of the city parcels, that basically brings the number from 6 to 10. So if you read the council action, I can explain it, but I'd like to change it from 6 to 10. So basically what this means is that when we run a water main past your house to serve a water main, you will not get assessed until you either A, connect, or B, you do a subdivision or a CSM on your property, and then that would be required at that time. So these would be an indefinite deferment. If someone never wanted to connect to our water system and they wanted to stay there forever and pass it on to their kids and grandkids and so forth, then they would never have to pay this assessment. But it would have to be paid if they were to ever connect to the water or subdivide their property. That's what this does. And as I mentioned in the council action, this is really mirrored after what we did on the backside of Kayla's playground for the parcels that didn't want water, but we had to go past them to serve Kayla's.
Alderwoman Day?
Yeah, so my question.
You are not, ma'am, you are not.
Thank you. So I kind of feel like 7 and 8 are a little out of order. I would like to, I'm not saying that we have to, but I would like to have talked about 8, where we're actually discussing the water tower and the water main before we get to the deferment of these. My concern is, I had some conversations with Glenn earlier today about if we're setting a precedent here moving forward for these now, I guess, 10 parcels, but several of them are city owned, to be doing this moving forward for future water mains that we have to put into the city. Are we going to be looking at having to do the same deferment for other people once it is crossing their property? So I'm concerned about that. And in my conversation with Glenn, he sort of alluded to if we didn't put this exception in place, the project might not move forward. And again, I'm a little bit concerned about the precedent we're setting for a handful of people to withhold a service that sounds like it is definitely needed within the city to supply water to this portion of Franklin that is developing. So personally, I would like to talk about the actual infrastructure before we talk about any of the deferments, because it seems out of order to me. And then secondly, my concern with this, with these 5 or 6 properties, if we agree to the deferment, I would like to add a third possible option if we're going to vote to allow them to defer being assessed. In addition to the subdivision of their property or wanting to hook up to the water, I would like to potentially include the change of title of the property, so that if it is sold to another person, that if there's a water main that they have to connect to city water, or if they are passing down, as Glenn just alluded to, in a family, that as if the title transferred over, that person would then have to. I don't, the perpetuity piece makes me have pause as well.
I guess I would answer that I do know one of the parcels has mentioned that they would like to pass on their children, and that was a sticking point that they were adamantly against. So it's up to Common Council's decision.
Mr. Barber,
Move to suspend the order to move to item 8.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we got a first and a second to suspend and move to item 8. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to item 8. So I'll read item 8, and we'll start with that one. Authorization to bid a water tower at 8120 South Lovers Lane Road. Tax key number 801-9986-000 and associated water main to connect to 7810 South 100th Street. Alderwoman Day.
Yeah, so as I alluded to, in the council action sheet, the first paragraph with the background talks about the need for this particular tower and water main line due to the development in this part of the city and the pressure issue that we have with our current storage tank. So I think it's definitely needed, and I'm all in favor of moving forward. My only question to Glenn earlier was in the price, where we talked about if we did both the north and south lines, that we were going to be over the 7 million PSC authorization. So we took the south part out, but we're still really close to the 7 million. So my concern was if we go over, which I suspect we might, just because I'm assuming if we put this out to bid again, prices will go up. Where and if, and now that we have a director of finance, where and if we could find any extra money to cover it if we were to go over.
So I think I can maybe take the first stab at that. So the Board of Water Commissioners has employed, or actually signed a contract with Rupert Milkie to actually look at all the financial ramifications of this, that, and the other. They will also be coming to Common Council next meeting, or possibly the meeting after, talking about the water impact fees, because that will have to be addressed before the PSC will talk about any kind of a rate increase. So the 7 million was a good faith estimate. If it is a little bit over, we're going to have to look at the numbers anyway, because we were counting on some assessments to pay for this. So we're basically taking the assessments off the table and looking at how that goes. So having said that, that's part of what Rupert Milkie would guide us through when they sit down and talk about the entire package. And they can talk to you about this too, even though the Water Commissioners is the one that initiated the study. So 7 million plus or minus, but in all, it will be discussed as far as a rate increase. That comes
and your recommendation is to still move forward with just the north, the tower, and then the north line, and leave the south off for now because of the cost?
Correct. The original project basically went on this little map that you see here. So that's top of the dashed line is there's a fire hydrant south of the Target Shopping Center. And the original project had intended to extend all the way down to St. Martin's Road. Part of a cost-saving measures, we looked at maybe cutting out the portion from the city parcel down to St. Martin's. And then we had that looked at hydraulically. And hydraulically, the water system still functions fine. So that's why we were proposing that maybe we cut that part out and rebid it.
Very good. Alderman Hofer.
So Glenn, are you unable to address the mechanics of the finance thing until we hear back from consultant?
Correct. So this is what I'm asking for tonight is basically just permission to rebid it. So we have a procedure set in place that before I put something out for bid, I ask for permission. I did ask for permission once upon a time. They got bid. We weren't able to act on the bids. So I'm going to rebid it again. I just want to be very clear and give you an example or give you a full description of what happened last time. We did get a lot of good bids, and we expect we'll probably still get a lot of good bids, and they were nice, tight bids. So I feel comfortable that we'll probably get something very similar this next time. But correct, by the time it gets around to actually going through the process to find a contractor and be ready to bid it, that's when I hope that we'll have some more information on exactly the mechanics of how to finance it.
So I want to see what the negative is and for how long a period of time, and is this going to be done through bonding?
Yeah, I would imagine likely it's going to be a revenue bond. So what they do is they look and they say, because you plan on bringing so much revenue in each year, that's what you're going to use to pay for this financing. So suppose you don't like the bonding or funding mechanisms, you don't have to award the contract, but the Public Service Commission approved this project a few years ago. We have a deadline of December that we have to actually start construction. Otherwise, that could go away unless they give us an extension. So we'd like to get started in that process while we're still looking at the working with Finance Department on how to fund it.
I'd like to know what the negative financial consequences are before I want to move too far forward, so.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's just that we need to get working on bidding it out because we won't be able to finalize the finance until we actually know what the contracts come in at, so.
I will read the recommended motion.
You want to go back to G?
Are we going to act? What's that? Counselor?
What was the thought from Alderwoman Day to just discuss this and return to item G7?
My understanding, and I'll ask her to speak on it, but I thought we were going to talk and settle on G8 and then go back to 7? Or we can simply go back to 7 now and go 7, then come back to 8 for a vote. I just think since we're at 8, we're here.
Then I would have a question on 7 that I'd like to address before we vote on it.
Well, then how about this? Let's just go back to 7. All right, motion to go back to item 7?
So moved.
Oh, boy, I have no idea. How about Mr. Holfer and Alderman Eichman, first and second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good, we're going back to G7. All right, G7, Mr. Holfer.
So I kind of got lost in the language of this run-on paragraph. And so I'm reading under your 207-15, where it says we can defer the assessment until it changes hands or until it's sold for 2 or more parcels. Where I get confused is where such earlier specified date or occurrences may be specified by the Common Council, where the Common Council determines it appropriate and reasonable under the circumstances of a public project undertaken to develop and provide a water tower. So we have the ability to defer this, but it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if the council decides, well, we're going to do this water park and we deem it acceptable, that they get the assessment, they're going to get the assessment. Unless I'm misunderstanding.
I would defer to legal counsel as this was originally his language. I just modified the, again, previous project to this project. Mr. Attorney, could you address his questions?
That's what it states. Deferment is the general subject where the council determines it appropriate and reasonable under the circumstances of a public project undertaken to develop and provide a water tower.
Alderman Barber's vacated at 7:43.
Other than the specific provision of the public facility improvements for the special benefit of the subject property, though there is still a special benefit to area properties adjoining and to be served by the public improvement, but it's very small.
So if I could elaborate, it's only for the purposes of a water tower. So should we ever decide to do another water tower, this would also apply, but it wouldn't be for just extension of a water main to a, say, a business park or something.
Right, but I mean, the way I read this, you could not have the deferment on this water park, on this water tower. The way it's written is confusing.
So.
And I'm not saying I'm not for or against, I'm just trying to get at a clear understanding of what it. what the impact is.
So keep in mind, this isn't a final decision on this project. This just allows us to defer it. So I still have to do an engineer's report when I find out the cost of the project, and I will list, it's a preliminary assessment or preliminary intent to assess for the water project. During that time is when I would say that you do have the option to defer for these properties, and that would allow you at that time to defer. So you're correct. In 3 or 4 months, when I give you the engineer's report, you could say, no, you want to assess those properties. I think that still leaves you an option if I understand the language correctly. But it also gives you the option to defer it, should you decide.
Alderwoman Day?
I get that. I just feel like now we're confusing the people who are wanting the deferment, that if we vote for this, they're going to think that or assume that they're getting the deferment, and then after you do your report and come back, we could then decide not to do it. I think that might actually be worse for these individuals than simply kind of just maybe taking the legalese out of it for the moment and just thinking about it as a concept. I don't know if we can do that or not, but I feel like moving forward with this language will very much confuse people more about what's happening.
And I agree, and I'd prefer us to move it forward with the deferments as listed and as posted, and I understand there's perhaps some questions about how deferments work and if we set a bad precedent. However, we don't set a bad precedent when we are backing our own residents for a project we're pushing, opposed to one that's being developed and moved forward by a developer. So when we charge them, Mr. Barber's back at 746 as far as where we're going. So I think it's up to the council, but I guess my 2 cents is to adopt the ordinance as presented or to move forward as suggested. Mr. City Attorney.
The draft ordinance does read that the deferment determination is made at the time of and during the special assessment proceedings. So that would be the case. You could provide notice to the property owners. The whole subject matter ultimately boils down to it's under the circumstances related to a huge public improvement serving well beyond specially benefited properties. It's not just a project to go down 2 or 3 blocks of the city to provide public water. And Common Council has to determine that it's appropriate and reasonable under the specific circumstances. And I would ask the city engineer for the specific circumstances related to these subject properties that may be approved for a deferment as to what those circumstances are versus some general overall setting of a precedent where
I would suggest to you that would be part of the report. So I would list, so as an example, when you look at the exhibit I just handed out, the upper left, those would not be involved because they already have access to water. Parcels in the upper right, they're called wetlands. We typically have not required assessments for those because it's really impossible to build any sort of home on those parcels. And then for the rest of the parcels, I would talk about how they have no plans to connect to the water main at this time. Probably the exception of the city property, 8120. We're planning for a park someday, but in the current year, there is no plan for them to connect. If they should decide, then the assessment would obviously go away, but that would be the reasons because they don't plan to connect to our system.
Okay. Any comment on that, Mr. City Attorney?
So the argument in the future, if the ordinance were adopted, would be that any property involved with regard to a large public improvement project that their property would especially benefited by may simply take the position that they don't want to connect.
So the two exceptions, if passed, the two exceptions that would be allowed in the code is if it's for a all-inclusive playground, as Kayla's was, or water tower. So if there was another large project that the city were extending, we'd have to write something else similar unless we want to make this broad enough to say a general public improvement, something, as opposed to a water tower. I think it helps to narrow it down, because there are some concerns about, there's a lot of people that have been assessed for water mains that are not connected to water mains in the past, and they still were assessed, and they still had to make payments, and the city depends on those even currently for, revenue. So I think to make a blanket for public good of the parcel is probably not the wisest decision, but it's up to the common council.
And I agree, I wouldn't make it blanket. I just want to focus on this one right here, this project, this group of citizens, and we are focusing on our vote on this. And if a different one comes up in the future, we'll take that as it comes. But I wouldn't recommend that we make it blanket anything. I think we should make this specific to this project. So any further discussion on that? Alderman Day, I just want to make sure, if we want to vet it, we might as well vet this right here and make sure it's been done right. I think it was pretty clear by the city engineer that if the different circumstances in which they would have to connect, if they would, then they would have to pay. And certain things are pretty clear. If they do this, then this happens. And I think that's about as clear as you can make it. If we want to add something else on there that you bring up that's reasonable, council approves it, that's fine, but I would like to, speaking with these neighbors, I don't see them, this isn't going to be something that's going to be a hookup anytime soon. It could be decades from now, if they choose to do it, or if it's sell or whatever. But I think we should just focus on this one. If you want to add your caveat to make it more appealable to the rest of the council, I think now's the time to do it. If not, the motion is the motion to approve or deny as it stands. Mr. City Attorney.
The exception 10 parcels as opposed to 6.
The 10 parcels opposed to 6.
Yes.
And I would, after City of Franklin, in the middle of that paragraph, highlighted in bold, I would put a comma. Out in the factual world, how many new water tower projects are planned for the next 4 decades?
In theory, this would be the last site. So the next water tower we build would be either this site or the Putes Water Tower site. And that's where the ultimate towers would go. We don't have plans for any other locations. So the next time, actually the next 2 times a water tower is built in the city, we won't have to run a water main to them because it'll be on the current sites.
Okay, so this might be singular project.
Correct.
Okay, that's a fact. And okay, no further questions.
So with that stated and with the changes, if we could have a recommended motion, is it going to be something that's changed? Then other than what's, I just want to make sure I'm encompassing everything that we're talking about for this motion, Mr. City Attorney.
I think city engineer's answer pretty much covered it. Facts of the case.
I think the only question outstanding is for you to decide on whether you want to sale of a home or transfer of the home, but.
Transfer title.
So.
Okay, Alderman Day, would you like to just add that part to this motion and make the motion?
Yeah, I will make the motion as it is with the corrections from the city attorney and the city engineer for the parcels and the
from 6 to 10?
From 6 to 10, the grammatical correction in the draft ordinance from the city attorney, and then to add a third condition for the assessment to occur would be a transfer of title, in addition to connecting to the water and the subdivision of the property.
Mr. City Attorney.
Just thought off the top of my head, what if transfer of title is part of some estate plan where property gets transferred to one of those estate trusts?
It goes to a trust, let's say Apple Orchard remains the Apple Orchard, but goes to a trust of the Apple Orchard, but still remains the Apple Orchard. I think that's maybe one example.
Well, it's the obvious intent of that's family planning, succession, but humans are still alive, but property ownership is transferred into a trust.
I'll trust your legalese on that, sir.
Well, no, that's...
Or do we take that out?
What if you said the sale of a parcel, so that way if it
To a third party,
transferred to a third party?
non-related, find some language to
So
define it
you-
as non-familial.
If you gifted it to your children, that would not qualify?
No, now we're totally favoring immediate family members.
Is it actually a sale of a parcel if someone were to, say, have a Glen Morrow versus a Glen Morrow Estate LLC trust? Is that a sale or just a transfer?
There might be technical arguments, regard to definitions, et cetera, from the code that.
We could approve it pending or include technical corrections.
Well, run into a situation where a substantial amount of this might cause some other situation, and it has to come back to the council.
City Attorney.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Subject to council approval upon transfer, so if someone did have a Glen Morrow to Glen Morrow Estate.
Should have specific terms and some research as to the appropriateness of such a.
Alderwoman Day, would you retract your motion if we table to have the correct language done in this? Or what are suggestions of the council?
Hold on. So I understand Alderwoman Eichmann's question to be, would you be willing to, not retract, but perhaps maybe retool your motion on behalf to the city attorney, or do we want to just simply move forward as stated with technical corrections by the city attorney?
Well, that could be a very broad range on research.
Well-
And there are other items
I know.
for next Wednesday's.
We gotta move on
council
this.
meeting. And so my thought was an appropriate return would be the meeting after the second meeting in, not the
Well,
first meeting in
It's next
July.
week.
It's July 5th, but let me ask you this. So let's say we want to come up with something, we have the motion here, we want to add one portion to this that we could agree upon, that if the property is, well, we have sold. I understand where you're going with this. I understand where you're going with this. Mr. City Engineer.
I do appreciate the sentiment that if someone were to sell their property, you'd like to do it. However, I would point out that if you, as it was written for Kayla's, someone could sell and not be subject to that. So this would be somewhat different of an issue. So, because you allowed it in that case.
And how many properties is that?
3, I believe.
So this is
I
10.
thought it originally was 5 for Kayla's. That's what's in the draft.
Oh, yeah, so 5 or less. Yeah.
I will retract that portion of the motion, just due to the small number of, so long as, now that there's a clear understanding that this particular ordinance is specific to a park and a water tower, and that this situation probably will not arise in the future, that, there's less than 15 properties involved.
Mr. City Attorney?
And perhaps, for further clarification, it's a public project undertaken to develop and provide a new water tower instead of just a water tower. Mr. City Engineer?
I don't think that matters one way or the other,
Okay,
because
then it does, it's not.
Okay, so, Mr. Barber, you have something to add to that?
I was just wanted to, is the only problem,
Push your button, please, Mike.
you're right.
is the only problem relative to some trust language, if it goes to a trust? But other than that, we agree on everything, and the trust is the issue?
No, it's a number of things, as I stated earlier. It's a favoritism towards certain of humanity or whatever, and as Mr. Morrow pointed out, the previous time this was done, for a unique, serve the entire public area and beyond project, just connected, and this time we'll say, or subdivided.
Well, I guess we'll go back to
I will-
Alderman Day.
Yeah, I will amend my motion to be what is stated here, to move forward with the ordinance with the corrections from Mr. Morrow to change the number of parcels from 6 to 10, and the technical corrections from the city attorney within the body of the ordinance.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Hofer.
Just one question, Glenn. So once this is deferred and an event takes place that now they're assessed, is there any back charge for interest or anything, or is it just going forward as long as it takes to pay it off?
No, when we have a deferment, there is no interest accumulate until the deferment ends, whether they connect or the time runs out, like at 12 years or 10 years, whatever. So in this situation, it's an indefinite deferment, and then no interest would accumulate until whatever triggers the deferment to end.
Okay. Does our treasurer see any difficulty with the counting behind it, and you have to create a new category or anything for this over the years?
Yeah, we have other properties that do this, so.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going back to 8, G8. Authorization to bid a water tower at 8120 South Lovers Lane Road, tax key number 801-9986-000, and an associated water main to connect to 7810 South 100th Street. Mr. Morrow.
So this has been discussed. We're looking options A, B, C, and D. So have a neighborhood meeting for the benefited property owners, proceed with the bidding projects, return with a professional services contract to assist staff in financing of the project, including bonds. And then D is prepare an engineer's report and return with a preliminary resolution for special assessment.
When I saw how this was put up, it was excellent. I commented on that, so this recommendation, how it's all encompassing, I think is wonderful. It's going to clear up a lot of any confusion or any clear direction. So we've got the recommendation. Do we have a motion on this?
Move to approve.
Second.
King and Eichmann, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. G9, notification of a water leak policy, public policy number 1-2023, adopted by the Franklin Board of Water Commissioners. Mr. Morrow.
So we had a resident that had a very unusually high water bill through some irrigation. And the Public Service Commission talked about it and told us that whatever we did for this resident would be precedent setting. So the Board of Water Commissioners backed up and decided we should really put this in a policy. This is the policy they came up with. We're not asking for common council adoption because Board of Water Commissioners has control over the water utility, but it is a new policy. Water leak policy is what we call it. So I'd be appropriate to bring it here to let you know how we do this, and so everyone can find it in the future, the water leak policy. So in essence, what we do is we look at what would a typical bill be for the quarter in question, and then the typical bill would be paid for as a typical bill would. Anything above and beyond, they only have to pay our wholesale rate. So we are a wholesale customer of, right now, Oak Creek, and so whatever that rate would be, that's what we charge them for above and beyond a typical bill.
Any other discussion on that? I'll repeat myself. Any further discussion on that?
No, Mayor.
Move the place on file?
Second.
We've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G10, authorization to participate in the Wisconsin Elections Commission 2023 absentee ballot envelope subgrant reimbursement program.
Motion to move.
Second.
We have a first of Eichmann and Holfer. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G11, an ordinance to amend the municipal code section 245-3B as in boy. Stops required to add 2 stop signs for West Lake Point Drive at South Golden Lake Way, making the intersection a 4-way stop. Alderwoman Eichmann.
I didn't have any comments on this. This was, I brought back on the agenda for a change in verbiage, to my understanding.
Okay, Mr. Morrow?
So this was discussed at the Board of Public Works. There's an intersection that where it would appear the stop signs are at the wrong legs of an intersection. Discussed the reasons for that. We surveyed the residents. We decided that we should add 4, basically add two stop signs to make it a 4-way stop. That seemed to be the most appropriate thing to do. This would have appeared prior to this, but it was incorrectly labeled on the Board of Public Works agenda, so we talked about it again and I say the Board of Public Works approved it with the corrected verbiage, and so now it's to Common Council for adoption.
And it's overwhelmingly supported to make it a 4-way stop. My 2 cents is to give the citizens, the 23, make this extra 4-way stop. A motion on this.
I'd like to make the motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So we've got Eichmann and Day. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G12, resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a landscape buffer easement for and as part of the approval of a final plat for the Cape Crossing subdivision upon property located at 12200 West Ryan Road, Cape Crossing LLC, property owner.
Move to approve.
Second.
Holfer and Craig. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item G13, resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a conservation easement for and as part of the approval of a final plat for the Cape Crossing subdivision upon property located at 12200 West Ryan Road, Cape Crossing LLC, property owner.
So moved.
Second.
Craig and Barber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Alderwoman Eichmann is left at 8:09 PM. Item G14, a resolution for acceptance of a stormwater facilities maintenance agreement and easements for public emergency access / pedestrian path, sanitary sewer, storm drainage, stormwater management access, and water main at 12200 West Ryan Road. Text key numbers 890-9991-001 and 890-9991-002. Alderman Craig.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item G15, a resolution to award the 2023 City of Franklin guardrail replacement contract to Arbor Green, Inc. in the amount of $58,639.75.
So moved.
Second.
Barber and Day. Any further discussion? Oh, Mr. Hofer.
Quick question for the city engineer. I'm happy to see the result. Is there any suggestion as to why the bid was so much higher? I mean, the estimate?
Other than we use DOT numbers, so that's how we came up with our bid. Based on other projects.
Just want to make sure we're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we had a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item G16, in ordinance to modify municipal code 222-3G to allow for construction of more than 2 driveways. This affects all districts. Mr. City Engineer?
So the builder could not make it here tonight, but several of the adjacent properties would like to express their support for this particular location that prompted this ordinance. We evaluated a third driveway and it seemed to meet all the criteria, but the municipal code does not allow city engineer to approve a third driveway. It allows me to approve a second driveway, not a third. So proposing to change it, just to change the verbiage that implies a second driveway to just more than one driveway. So additional driveways, if you will. And obviously, if it doesn't meet the criteria, I would deny it. And if they don't like my denial, they are welcome to come back to Common Council and appeal it just like they would if I denied a second driveway.
8:11 p.m. Alderman Eichmann's back on post.
And this situation it's a very big lot. It's on a corner lot. So they'd like a circle driveway, which matches most of the rest of the homes on that street. And then this third driveway is actually, depending on how you count the third driveway, but they're looking for a spot on the other street that would basically feed a garage from the back, again, because it's a corner lot. So, again, all the neighbors say it would work well in this neighborhood, and I believe it would work. I just didn't have the authority to approve it before.
Mr. Hofer.
So then, when somebody comes in the future and says, can I do this, you'll have a set, these are the parameters you can do it with, or are you just going to look at it?
Yeah, so right now I have a set of parameters. I make sure it's so far away from an intersection, and staff looks at it, and there's some other things that we look at to make sure that it fits, if you will. We don't want somebody to have a driveway coming out in the middle of an intersection or something like that. So we do review each one as it comes through. The planning department, inspection department also has to sign off on this issue and allow that to happen. Once everyone signs off, then I'm the one that actually gives the final okay.
Thank you. I would move to approve.
Mr. City Attorney. Then we'll get to the first and second.
Alderman Barber seconded.
Yes. We have a first and a second. Did you have a comment, sir?
Just factually for the record, when this started a week or two ago, did a redraft because the issue arose that property owner, developer wanted 3 driveways and the municipal code doesn't allow more than 2. And I did the redraft on it and figured out a way to do 3, and it was a unique circumstance because it's a corner lot, and rewrote it so that it said, okay, at least, well, access of the 3, at least one has to go to on different road than the other 2.
And so if you notice, we don't reference 3, we just say additional driveways because it is conceivable there could be some really, really large parcels that maybe 4 is appropriate. I can't point to any right away, but this would allow for that. So for example, let's say somebody wants a circle driveway on 2 streets, that might be appropriate. So.
But I did inquire of the city engineer because my thought was, well, I assume this ordinance has been there forever, and the city, in terms of residential development, is probably double in the last 20-some years. So if it's always worked, you might be opening up a.
I will say that if you look around, you will find other situations where there's third driveways, and I can't tell you how they got there, but they do exist.
So if we do this, though, they all have to have the standard approach and
Yeah, yeah, it still require all the typical permits you would for a single driveway. Has to meet the minimum distances and radiuses and EIEIO.
as to your point, I've seen some where people went in and did drives and had asphalt instead of the concrete, the approach. And we had one in our neighborhood that had to be fixed.
Yeah. So asphalt is what the city would do for you. Most people like to, or not say most people, but several people like to do concrete or brick, and that's their expense.
Alderman Barber.
So if the lot requirements aren't met for the size, it wouldn't be approved then at that point? Your setbacks, you mean your lot size?
Yeah,
Small lot wouldn't.
Yeah, there's lots of things we look at. One is lot coverage. You're only allowed to have so much, depending on which zone and which neighborhood, you're only allowed to have so much percent covered with impervious surface. And we like to have minimum distances from an intersection and those kinds of things.
And what constitutes a driveway, like Alderman Hofer said? If someone just cuts a hole in their bushes, starts driving into a yard, does that constitute a driveway, or?
So any construction within the public right-of-way, you have to get a driveway permit. And
You have to have a permit for it. You say that a little louder and.
yeah, so anytime anybody builds a drive approach, or once a drive approach is constructed, which actually the city would do, you have to come in for a permit for that.
Okay.
I will tell you that, like, we're running into Hawthorne neighborhood. Again, who knows when this happened, but there's several locations where people just filled a bunch of asphalt in adjacent to the road as a pull-off section. I'm not making them dig it up as part of a road project, but that would not be allowed currently.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this? Go first and a second? Good. Oh, I'm sorry. Hofer and Barber, excellent. No further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, ayes have it. G17, pathway funding for South 27th Street from West Mill Drive to West Elm Road. Sit down here.
So this was talked about on June 6th, where it was decided that the city wanted to see a sidewalk, that have DOT construct a sidewalk for us up and down 27th Street. So it's budget time. We're talking about how to put things in the budget for the future. And so we could fund it completely with our funds. That's a lot of money, as noted last time that we talked. However, it is consistent that we have charged adjacent property owners for sidewalks if they're, and this is an indefinite deferment situation. So if you're a residential property for single or double family, you have an indefinite deferment. Otherwise, you get assessed for the improvements adjacent to your property. This was done on 27th Street north of Villas when that project was done. We took our expense for the sidewalk that we had to pay and our expense for the fancy lights that we had to pay, and we assessed those to all the businesses up and down through there. That's what I'm proposing here. If you're feeling generous, we could throw some city dollars at it, but for the most part, it's pretty much all getting paid for by the adjacent properties. There's a few that are zoned R6. North and south of Briarwood is specifically where you'll see those. And I believe that was about $30,000 that we would have to actually purchase with our city funds.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. I thought this was very comprehensive, and I agree with your recommendation, as well as the potential for having a public hearing on this, as I'm sure that there'll be many businesses and residents along that road that will have questions, so.
Sir.
Yeah, I'd make the motion to what is written here, so directing staff to prepare engineer's report as stated. Yeah.
On the action sheet,
I'm sorry, Mr. City Attorney?
as stated on the action
As
sheet
stated on the action sheet,
recommendation.
yes.
And if I could add, there is probably a key difference here in this project than we did north of Villas, in the fact that we're going to use our park impact fees to pay for them, so to lessen the burden on the citizens. We didn't do that for the projects north.
So your motion is the one that's recommended on the action sheet?
Second.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item G18, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute an amendment to agreement with Ellers Associates, Inc. for a tax incremental district creation professional services.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item G19, an ordinance to amend 169-1 of the municipal code as it pertains to due dates for license fee payments for transient merchants to the St. Martin's Fair. Oh my God, that sounds.
So moved.
Second.
A first and a second. We'll go with Barber and Day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fair's come on. Fair loves the fair. Item G20, authorization to execute an agreement with Industrial Roofing Services, Inc., IRS, to provide study, review, and plan preparation services for the Cedar Franklin building exterior, specifications of Fire Station Number 1, building exterior specifications of a law enforcement center, and exterior sealant specifications of public library city facilities as part of an enhanced capital improvement plan.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. I was going to ask for the city engineer, but that's good. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item G21, authorization to execute. There you go. Authorization to execute proposal with Industrial Roofing Services, Inc., IRS, for the City of Franklin masonry repair and exterior painting specifications of Ken Wendell Park Facility Building as part of an enhanced capital improvement plan.
So moved.
Second.
A first and a second. Any further discussion?
State by who?
First was Barber, second was Holfer. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. G22, agreement for professional services to provide assessment services between the City of Franklin and Accurate Appraisal LLC. Common Council entered closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985, sub 1, sub E, for competitive and bargaining reasons to deliberate and consider terms relating to the agreement for professional services to provide assessment services between the City of Franklin and Accurate Appraisal LLC entered into on February 7, 2022, and the performance thereof, and the investing of public funds and governmental actions in relation thereto, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
Motion to move to closed.
Second.
Oh, first
I'm sorry.
and a second, any further discussion?
I was just going to ask if you wanted to.
I know. This is, we'll do this, I was just confused. Roll call, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hope.
Aye.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion carries.
In closed session.
Craig and Barber. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to the So are there approval of the licenses? I'm reading this here. License meeting of June 20th, 2023 is a plethora.
And May 30th as well.
And May 30th, okay, Mr. Craig?
On page, do I go off of the page of the agenda or on the pages of what the licensing committee numbers are as far as page
However
numbers?
you want to handle it.
Okay. Page number 272, all are approved with a couple exceptions pending all local and state regulation, fire inspections and the like. 270. Again?
272 is our minutes.
The bottom here. Under H licensing, bottom, page 272, bottom right of the, what's in the packet. I'm following you. Madam Clerk, are you following? Okay.
City, wait, City Attorney, for clarification, maybe I can clarify. To my understanding, we had to go back to the May 30th meeting because those minutes,
We're not adopted previously.
were never read.
Okay, so
That's
technically,
where
these
the
are
confusion.
not minutes. All right.
They're the minutes from the license committee.
But going back to May 30th, because those weren't done at the last meeting.
Okay, so it's not council meeting minutes.
Correct.
Correct.
Agenda.
Licensing.
Licensing committee minutes.
Special License Committee agenda minutes for May 30th, 2023 from 5:30 PM.
Continue on to page 273, all are approved. One pending payment for Casa di Giorgio. And then Iron Mike's was held pending an appearance, which they did fulfill later on and were approved. Page 274, all are approved. One item for pending payment. 275, all are approved. One for that was pending payment, and two for updating their background check. Page 276, all applicants are approved, as are 277, 278, and 279.
Is there a second?
Second.
See no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item agenda number I is an item.
Wait,
There's-
he's not done.
There's another one?
No, yeah, there's also
Go ahead.
the ones for June 20th, 2023. The page number 288.
280.
Oh, there we go. Dated June 20th, 2023 at 5 PM.
Sir, all are approved except for Kenneth Lux, who did not appear before the committee. And 289, all applicants are also approved.
Okay, we have a special, another motion on that one. So
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have a first and a second, Barbara and Day. Any, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Going to item I, vouchers and payroll, council action requested. Motion approving the following: city vouchers with ending date of June 15, 2023, in the amount of $1,312,299.61, and payroll dated June 16, 2023, in the amount of $453,518.35, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $234,542.54, plus city matching payments, and estimated payroll dated June 30th, 2023, in the amount of $435,000, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $460,000, plus city matching payments.
So move.
We have a first and a second, Barber and Hopfer. This would be a roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Alderman Hopfer.
Aye.
Eichmann.
Aye.
Day. Aye. Barber.
Aye.
And Craig.
Aye.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 absent. Motion carries. Is there a item to, excuse me, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second, Craig and Eichmann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are off the record.
Yeah, we're not.